Hi, I'm Greg Ullin with Reynolds & Reynolds, and this is Connected. I'm really excited about this conversation today. I get to sit down with an old friend of mine. We get to catch up every now and then, Michael Cirillo. If you're not familiar, I'd be surprised, but Michael has many roles. He's the CEO of Flex Dealer. He's a partner at More Than Cars, and he's the founder of the Dealer Playbook, one of my favorite podcasts. Michael, thanks so much for joining me.
Such a pleasure. I'm always grateful anytime we can catch up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you here in just a couple weeks in beautiful Carlsbad, California at Amplify. You're joining us as a judge for the Amplifiers Contest this year.
It's going to be exciting. I mean, we've had some time to review the applicants, and I think it's important for all of those that are leaning in to know that we actually really labored over the applicants. This was not one of those things that we just kind of sat side stage before we were about to introduce and said, oh my gosh, who's doing what? No, like we have gone through these, and kudos to your team, by the way, for making sure that we went through these and looked at each one of them. I'm really excited about it. I think it's a cool initiative that happens as part of the event.
No, thanks for helping us with this. And we do think it's important. I mean, and your point about actually going through them, like we take this seriously. I mean, people are at the center of this industry and they're coming up with good ideas. And it's not just hey, let's throw some stuff on stage. It's really, truly like, let's highlight these people that are doing the work, not just talking, right, but doing the work and putting it in practice. And it's important for them, I think, to get to share. So, some of the things that were submitted, and they were all over the board, right? All different roles and all different departments and all different types of things. But, one of the things that I wanted to touch base on as kind of a launching pad is really the idea of people being at the center. And I was reading through, I don't know how long ago you wrote this, but I was reading through your LinkedIn profile, and I wrote down a line. It said the through line of it all: durable growth beats fast growth, trust beats transactions, and dealers who build people build everything else. So maybe talk a little bit about that. And again, sorry, I probably caught you off guard. I don't know how long ago you wrote that, but I think there's something there that is a real truth.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't know what you want to call it, the universe, God, whatever you believe, there is a foundational truth to how things operate. And so for me, early on in my career, I mean, look, my career in automotive started with the transition from traditional advertising, print. I mean, my family business published phone books for a living. We transitioned into car magazines, into the internet, so on and so forth. So like my real boom was at the height of Web 2 hitting the ground, and everyone needed a website. And I learned then the narrative is all you need is X and you'll achieve Y.
Yeah.
And the hype around it and the buzzwords. We joke about the buzzwords. I'm so grateful that early on I picked up on, hold on a minute. As long as there are human beings breathing oxygen on the planet, then chances are we're going to need to find meaning and value and purpose in this world. And if that's the case, then we are going to want to do things we enjoy. We're going to want to have an impact. These are just like universal truths. And we see it all around us. Why does it feel so good to serve other people and to give and to be generous and kind? These are all just like universal truths. And so here we are 30 years later, the advent of AI, which, by the way, for those that have really been paying attention to AI, know that it was starting to be developed 80 years ago. Optically, it looks like it just happened, but for people that have been paying attention, they know 80 years ago, the first models and ideas and concepts around what we now are experiencing as AI is a thing. And so here we are, the buzz. And what is the buzz? Oh my gosh, train the agent to do the thing to achieve X so you don't have to. And oh my gosh, it's going to take everybody's jobs. And I think we're just approaching it from the wrong angle. Right conversation, wrong angle.
Okay.
So for me, what motivates narrative like what I wrote on LinkedIn is this. Hey, if AI can replace the aspects of one's job that we should have never had to do to begin with, then it will empower us to do more of the things that we should have been doing all along. For example, if I look in my business, and this is maybe an archaic example, I'm dating myself, pay no attention to the gray hairs in my beard. This is maybe a poor example, but I think you'll get the point, Greg, which is, should I have spent 6 of my 8 hours at work staring at spreadsheets trying to reconcile data? Or do I get a more human, tangible impact from putting a pen to paper and writing a genuine thank you note to somebody I'm trying to develop a relationship with?
Sure.
Now, some people might say, okay, that is an archaic example, but the point really is I shouldn't have had to sit here and reconcile 6 months worth of data because I can't look at a million data points and I will miss something. And I will have an instinct that's based on my gut. And we've been playing this game over and over and over again and not getting anywhere. I can now have AI analyze a million points of data in 0.2 seconds, give me some plausible opportunities that almost always end up being human outputs.
Yeah.
And so I refuse to live in a world, Greg, where the AI, the artificial intelligence, is telling the regular eye what it should have known all along. But because we just didn't have a better model, we ended up doing all of these things manually. I would much more prefer be in a scenario where leaders from a human level can pour into other humans who can share the lived experience, the nuance, how to build relationships, the importance of paying attention to context and social cues and street smarts and all of these things that have actually had a profound impact on their experience working in the auto industry or in life in general, versus you're going to go sit in that windowless room for the next 8 hours and you're going to tell me why my marketing dollars aren't going further. Snooze.
Yeah. I like to, especially with folks, is one of my favorite kind of interview conversations is, you have tasks that you really like to do and you have tasks that you really don't like to do, right? And when you think about them in buckets, and on the one bucket, on the one hand, there's these things that no matter how hard they are, right, and how long they take and how difficult they are, when you're done, you just feel energized. You're ready to take on the world. You're ready to do it all over again. And there's these other things in this other bucket that, no matter how easy they are, no matter how really short of amount of time they end up taking, when you're done, you just feel tired. You need to go for a run or get a cup of coffee to wake up. And so I always ask people, like, what fits in those buckets for you? And it sounds like that's what you're describing too, is there's these things that we do, right? And honestly, it is different for everybody. I truly believe that, where different people have different strengths and things they gravitate towards. But when you can use technology to empower the things that you're good at, that you like to do, that you gravitate towards that bucket that energizes you. And you can also leverage technology to maybe help with some of that stuff that drains the energy from you. So you're getting more out of the good and less of the bad. It has almost a compounding effect where you get a much bigger increase, or I think the potential to, when you can apply it in the right ways.
Let me give you a real life, tangible example of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share it. I know I'm breaking all the protocol. I'm staring at my phone now during a podcast, but I have a real life assistant named Paige.
Yep.
And I have an AI assistant that lives in my iMessage on my phone.
Okay.
It's an app available to everybody. It's called Lindy. No, I'm not sponsored. No, I wish I was. Yes. Lindy. And I mean, if we're going to break it down, it's an iMessage integration. They're probably using Twilio or some, phone service, right?
Sure.
Which is tied into a GPT or some large language model, which has connectors to my Google inbox and calendar and so on and so forth. And for a brief moment, I thought, oh my gosh, what is Paige going to do? This is getting really scary good. It talks like a human would talk. It replies like a human. It's learned my tone and my writing style. It's drafting emails for me. It's doing all sorts of things. Well, here's a practical example, because I think I've reconciled it for myself. I get a text message 15 minutes ago, or I guess 20 minutes ago. It says, connected podcast recording in 15 minutes. Goal, discuss the amplifiers context you help judge, the stakes, return appearance on the Reynolds podcast, your perspective on the contest and finalists. Who matters? Greg Euland, VP of Marketing at Reynolds, links me to your LinkedIn profile. Kate Walsh, Reynolds Marketing, was on the July 7th contest judging call. Links to her LinkedIn profile. Owns reaching out to finalist. AJ, ABM Marketing Reynolds Organizer. What changed? You were one of the 2 judges who picked the final 5. Number 7, and it tells me the 5 that I picked. Watch for pre-recording time. Kate was the point of contact for reaching out to finalists, blah, blah, blah. So it goes through, it says use this, and then it says before the meeting, Kate is on the call and owns final. Like, what? Huh? So then one might ask, well, what in the heck is the real life? What is Paige doing?
Right.
I'll tell you what Paige is doing. Paige is talking to investment property insurance agents for me today because it requires the mouth, and this can't make phone calls for me, nor would I really want it to. Paige is reviewing documents that only she can review and make sure that they're organized the way that I like them. This might be able to do that one day. But the point being is that Paige is focused on real life things that this can't do yet. She's finding somebody that and calling them to repair a thing on my house and to, line up certain things. She knows my wife's preferences better than anybody else. So we have a business dinner we have to go to tonight, and she's looking for restaurants that have gluten-free menu options and calling them to confirm. Like there are things that real life assistant can do. And then there are things that I should have never wasted her time with to begin with.
Sure. Yeah.
And the same is going to be whatever our appetite is, to your point, whether I'm good at analysis or not, then just look at it in reverse. Because if I want to utilize my time to do those types of tasks because I derive joy from them, then that means there are other things that could be augmented that will help scale me and help me move with greater velocity. I use that term velocity with intention because velocity should not insinuate just speed, because I know we are all speed maniacs in a way. Velocity is focused speed. It implies that you know the direction that you want to go, that you've thought through it. There's a purpose, there's a goal. And so for me, the next era of all of this is tech enabled, human delivered, right? And so that's the right conversation in my perspective. The wrong conversation is, oh my gosh, it's going to take my job, so why should I even try anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your view on, to build off of that a little bit, what's your view on amplification using technology? So I think about it, and you probably do this, right? You record, how many podcasts do you produce in a month?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, we at any one time we'll have 3 to 4 months of episodes recorded.
Yeah. So you're producing just a ton, right? So how do you then break down and amplify all that content, right? Regardless of where it's at, the Dealer Playbook as an example, right? You record an episode, it's a really strong episode, and you probably use some technology platform to splice that up into clips. So now you have 10 clips that you can share on LinkedIn. You need to post that stuff. You need to have, words to post it. There's a lot of things that have to happen to promote one episode, right? Yeah. And you want that episode to live for a long time. So you're gonna kind of tease it ahead of time. You're gonna have the drop, and you're gonna tease it afterwards. So you have kind of this tail ahead and behind. So to do some of that stuff, to amplify and extend that message, right? To me, it's not just about going fast. It's about being able to produce more out of one thing that you were able to pour your heart and soul into, and get more out of that thing.
Yeah, I love this. And see, my European passion, my Italian Portuguese passion comes out with these kinds of questions because I mean, well, look, my podcast is called The Dealer Playbook, so we might as well talk through the playbook. Let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Here's how we are tech enabled today. Yes, to your point, there are softwares out there, Opus Clip and whatever it might be, that can grab snippets. Let's go back one layer. And what we do is my producer, Arnold, will extract all of the downloads from Spotify and Apple and wherever the audio lives. We'll extract that data. We'll download it. We will get it from LinkedIn and YouTube and, X and wherever they're posting stuff. The power user tip here is if you're using Buffer or one of those Loomly or whatever, you can extract all of that data in one go, with exception of maybe the podcast platforms. But once you have that data, what we do is we drop it into Notebook LM. The reason we use Notebook LM is because it will only live inside the guardrails of the source material. It won't hallucinate outside of the source material. And from there, we simply say, here's the last 90 days of data. What topics resonated? Which one got the most playtime? Tell us about our demographics. Have they changed? Have they shifted? And boom, we get a nice summary of our audience. So when I say I know unequivocally that the podcast listeners for the Dealer Playbook are 80% male between the ages of 35 and 55, I know with a great degree of certainty. I know what topics and headlines resonated the most. And then from there, what we do is we actually guide future episodes. We'll say, okay, now we have an idea of maybe which ones hit and which ones didn't. We've removed a lot of the, call it guesswork. And we're able to then, with a greater understanding of our audience, train, but Arnold mostly, that when he's using something like an Opus clip or Format Finder or whatever, that he now has a cross-reference to his soul, saying, okay, the algorithm's saying that will work, but my soul, based on this, the nuance, I know it won't. I need something that's a little more X. And then what we do from there is, for amplification, I think a lot of people miss this. And this will work for a dealer who's posting on social media, us podcasters, any content creators out there. Don't be afraid to post the same video twice with a different caption and a different maybe starting screen. We do it. The first time we post it, it might only get 300 views. And then you post it again later, whatever your posting window is. It's the exact same video, but the second time we post it, it gets 2,000 or 3,000 views or whatever it might be. And from there, for those that are really leaning into this right now, what I've just shared is how we are utilizing technology, including social platforms and double posting. That is part of our tech stack to understand how to amplify the message.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great stuff. I love it. So let's talk a little bit then, if you don't mind, Michael. We'll shift gears somewhat, because I do want to come back to this at the end. There's another kind of a little nuance to this I want to circle back around. Sure. So we're going to put a pin in it for a second. But I want to go ahead and dive into as well the Amplifiers Contest. So you made reference to it earlier and spending a bunch of time going through. I mean, there were a lot of submissions, and it takes time to actually go through these. But we did announce the 5 finalists, and like I said, they were kind of all over the place. I mean, we had Chris Lasko from BMW of Pittsburgh talking about remote F&I, right? So you have the F&I office represented. You have Ken McCord from Artmone Auto Group, Express Lane Inspections, and how to get the most out of those. So we got kind of the Express Lane. You got Tech Efficiency from Daniel Wentz at Safford Mazda Fredericksburg. Like, I mean, we're all over the place in the last two, because I certainly don't want to leave them off. Denise Abreu at Affinity of Lynbrook, and she's working on processes in the BDC, right, and how to get the most there, and that can be a really interesting one, because there's so many. I hear at least so many takes on the BDC in today's world, right? It's like some people are still all in, some people are just getting started, some people are starting to pull back, and it's different in sales and in service, and I love that conversation. So I'm excited about that one, and finally. David Clenny at Ted Britt Ford. He runs their Pro Elite Commercial Service Center at Ted Britt, and he's talking about service throughput and how do we get the most out of the space that we have and the text that we have. So kind of all over the board. But were there any? I guess what I want to get to with you is, were there any, I guess, themes that really stood out? I think earlier you mentioned people at the center, but as you were looking at these, anything from an operational perspective, I guess, that stood out to you?
The thing that stood out to me the most was how many were focused on fixed ops.
Yeah.
I was actually impressed by that, because it shows more and more operators are not thinking about fixed ops through the silo of it, but they're understanding how fixed ops can actually power the rest of the operation, depending on what angle you're looking at it from. And so for me, that was the most impressive thing, to see just how many of the submissions were fixed ops related and how many of them tied into a real human experience. I mean, you had one that was as simple as incentivizing technicians to do their job more effectively. And well, what is the tangible downstream impact of that? Well, it's a happier customer who's going to be more likely to come back and service their vehicle. If I know that my vehicle was serviced and maintained properly by one of my certified technicians, perhaps there's an opportunity to reacquire that vehicle, put it into my used fleet, sell that thing and service it again. And I'm seeing indications of this is how people are starting to think of fixed operations, which is really impressive to me. The other part of it was, I mean, as you mentioned, there was a remote F&I concept that we're intrigued to learn more about. I think there's some questions around compliancy that we would want to know, and how do you really maintain the efficacy of your experience, not being able to maybe necessarily monitor what kind of experience that remote F&I agent is providing. But
so I want to dig into that one real quick, if you don't mind. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's a really interesting one too, because it goes back to, you mentioned earlier, people, and he's not talking about putting the F&I office online. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about having a professional, right? An F&I professional guiding the customer, educating the customer, helping them through the process, and doing it in a remote environment. And I think that's a really important nuance, that we're not taking the person out of the experience. We're making the person available to a broader customer set. And we are also, in a lot of ways, opening up our employment segment of people that we can draw from, right? So we can go pick the best F&I manager that we can find now, regardless of whether they live 10 miles down the road or not.
That's right. And I think that's a really compelling reason why we want to have this conversation, because what does it look like? How would it play out in application? How is it safeguarded? Because I think a lot of people, if they don't understand the concept, are going to really wonder, how do I keep myself protected, and all of these sorts of things. And also, what's interesting to me is the ability to then scale out my department. Maybe I'm not, to your point, if I'm not stuck at my desk and I can open up my talent pool. I mean, as a brick and mortar business, we've so often been limited by the gene pool in our primary market area. And this puts me in a position where I could just source the best talent wherever.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a fun one for sure. That's a fun one for sure. But on the fixed ops front too, you mentioned a lot of fixed ops, and to me, that's just, it's efficiency. And there's, so many inefficiencies that we experience in service. You spend a day in a service department, and it's nobody's fault. Nobody's doing anything wrong, but you just look at it, and every 6 minutes that ticks off, you just go, well, there was a tenth. Oh, there was a tenth. And it's just, there's these little places that we can pick up a tenth here and 2/10 there. And those add up over the course of a month. Every 30-day period, those add up to really big numbers. So when somebody finds a way to get more of those back, and not just have them kind of waste away, it does have a really big impact.
Yeah. I mean, that efficiency gap, like you said, in a silo, you might go, 1/10 or 2. No, it compounds so quickly. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between feeling like you need to hire 2 more techs and actually being capable with the band or the team that you have. Yeah. And we're seeing it time and time again. So I loved seeing how much fixed ops. I mean, gosh, we're going back maybe 7 years ago on my podcast. I can't even remember who I was talking to. We'll dig it up and maybe send you the link. Yeah. Where we're talking about showrooms actually shrinking, maybe going a little more modern. This is before the whole Carvana thing blew up, Yeah. And we were talking about how showrooms might shrink, where the process of buying a car would be so optimized that maybe there's one of each vehicle in the showroom, and you can say, here's the available colors and, options, and you pick the one you want, and they drive it up front. And so variable showrooms shrink, but service departments get bigger. And so we were kind of pontificating over the dealership of the future being a big service department and a smaller showroom. And you see the narrative all these years later slowly considering, well, what might that look like? And I think that puts the spotlight naturally on fixed operations. And to your point, how do we make it more efficient? And what are the small inputs that give us a disproportionate output in return?
Yep. Yeah, and I actually just looked at numbers this morning on some fixed ops metrics over the last 12 months, and I keep saying they can't go up forever, but they just keep going up. I mean, everything, right? It's hours per RO, it's total hours, it's effective labor rate, it's profit per RO. Everything just keeps ticking up. And I mean, it's because I do think a big reason is because we continue to find ways to innovate there and get more out of the space we have, get more out of the people we have. And until you can look at a service department and say, okay, every single minute that we truly have available to get work through the shop is being utilized, we're going to continue to be able to increase. And it's just a fun way to look at the world and the dealership world for sure. And there's that's not to say there's not a ton of room in other departments, right? From a sales perspective, you can't have missed opportunities. And from a business office perspective, I think the business office is prime for some of those things that we were talking about earlier, where, if you can take your folks that you have and empower them to be even better and do even more of the things that they love and they're really good at, and you can kind of get rid of some of those things that maybe to your point, they shouldn't be doing, they never should have had to do anyway, then you can get more out of those folks in the business office too, and it changes the dynamic of their work. But yeah, I think it's all over the dealership, every department, and it's a ton of fun to watch people figure it out, and then be willing to share it with everybody else.
Years ago, one of the buzzwords was holistic. And I think we were trying to be fancy with the HOLISTIC, holistic. What we're seeing now, what's a really interesting conversation to me is holistic, WHOL, right? Whole, E. I should have finished that. Yes, I can spell amplified contestants and attendees. The whole operation, the operation as a whole, how variable can feed F&I, can feed service, can feed variable again. Buy centers. How many operators now are considering building out their own buy center? I mean, add that to what I see as a hyperloop, this self-sustaining ecosystem. Well, this kind of feeds into this thing that I think a lot about, which is now I have, as an operator, greater control over the quality of every touch point, because I am not constantly trying to introduce net new people into my ecosystem. Yes, there's a room for it. We need it, but the cost, I will say it that way, the cost of indoctrinating net new audience versus those that are already experiencing me in some way, shape, or form is actually far higher, because I'm starting from scratch with everybody. When I start looking at my operation as a whole and saying, okay, here's the people that have come in, and we are now focused on generating a better quality opportunity, because we're not just spray and praying anymore. We're getting very surgical and tactical in the way that we market and message and brand and hospitality and so on and so forth. The likelihood that those people are going to buy into my warranty products and buy into my finance products is greater, because they finally understand why it's important. It's less what air quotes slimy sales and more common sense next step of what I really do want. I want them to know I'm taking care, which means I have a greater probability of servicing my vehicle there and buying genuine parts and tires and wipers and all of the things that we know we got to check box off, right? And to the point earlier, why I'm so interested in fixes, because if I do those things with a greater degree of hospitality and experience and quality, starting with higher quality to begin with, then I've got my buy center set up. I'm restocking that vehicle as a pre-owned vehicle. I'm selling the vehicle again. I'm selling warranties on it and aftermarket services. I'm servicing it, so on and so forth. You might look at one brand new vehicle today, but it might be a 2 times used car sale for you. So I know we love to think about lifetime value, but we rarely talk about how to make it practical. And all of this leads back to the quality of every touch point, which is a position that I believe so deeply in. We have been trained, and this is not a fault finding mission, but we have been trained by virtue of the promises sold for the last 30 years that more is the thing we should be tracking. I need more. Hey, just build a website. You'll get more traffic, more leads, and more sales. Cringe, right? Hey, just run ads with us and you'll get more leads. You need more applicants. You need more. Like that's the KPI we've been measuring against. And it's so ambiguous when you really think about it. Well, what if we switched more to quality? What if we started measuring for quality? What if we started changing our behavior to garner quality? What if we started targeting and repositioning our marketing to generate for quality, not quantity? What happens? What is, if I were to bring us through the whole funnel from marketing, generating a better quality opportunity? And some might say, well, Michael, how do you quantify that? Easy. A higher quality opportunity should be seen in the CRM with a higher engagement rate, a higher appointment set rate, show rate, and proposal rate. A higher quality opportunity. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me push back a little bit, and I do this because I want to hear your thoughts. So
yeah.
All right, the quality versus quantity metric. I do believe that everyone has always gravitated towards quantity because it's tangible, it's measurable, it's easy to measure. And you just listed off kind of 3 KPIs that you can say, well, you think about it, and logically, if it's a higher quality lead, right, the first touch point is higher quality. Ultimately, it's going to close at a higher rate. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's what you would expect a higher quality lead to be. Yep. But in some ways, I would say that is not necessarily causation. That is in some ways correlation. Meaning, how many other variables are there that could be impacting the closing rate on that lead or a set 100%. Of leads. So if your average close rate, right? So if your average close rate's 20%, right, and you have this one over here, or this set of 10 that closed at 80%, were they higher quality, or did we just get lucky with those? Like there's a lot of variables. So that's where I want to push back just a little bit and get you to continue talking about, okay, how do we really isolate and measure quality when we think about that?
Yeah, I love this. So to your point, it can't be measured in a one-off. Right. We have to look at the appropriate size data set. And this is where old school conversion rate optimization really comes into play, right? The practice of creating a thesis that says, if we change this one thing, we should see an increase or a decrease by X percentage. We have to measure it over this period of time based on the numbers that we're currently getting. Lower numbers means we run the experiment for longer. Higher numbers means we can get away with measuring for a little bit less time, right? It has to be measured in an appropriate window, which has to be stated in your initial thesis. Hey, we're a small store and we only get 300 leads a month. Guess what? We're going to have to measure this for a bit longer. It's just the nature of the thing here. Why? Because we want a high degree of certainty that the change we made did have the positive or negative impact. Well, people say, I don't want a negative impact. I just want to go up, up, up. And it's like, well, you're not going to go up, up, up if you don't know, and you keep guessing and you keep switching marketing companies like you change your socks. Every time that reset happens, you are pushing yourself further back than getting further ahead. And look, the nature of the beast, I get it. Again, I'm not on a fault finding mission at all. Mazel tov to everyone. But as long as we keep playing that game, then what's every marketing agency going to do? They're going to say, oh, yeah, we did an audit and we saw all the mistakes, the past market, just to validate the bias. It's an echo chamber. The way to get beyond that is it starts with the operation. What do we truly want? Do we want to expand our footprint in this market? Do we want to be a stronger community player? Do we want to have a stronger brand message? Do we want to increase our hospitality? Here's something as a side note that struck me. I'm in Kazakhstan. In a period of 72 hours, I visit 30 dealerships in Almaty, Kazakhstan. It didn't matter if you were a Kia store or a Highline luxury store and everything in between, Greg. The atmosphere, the hospitality, the environment, the cadence, the appearance, like white shirts, ties, nice slacks or pencil skirts, hair done. they would stand up, the reception, male or female, it didn't matter. They would stand up. Welcome to our store. Can I get you a fresh cup of coffee? They would walk you back to every dealership had a coffee shop with a full-time barista right there and a lounge and beautiful furniture and this and that. So like in America, we crave over we craze over these new 2.0 stores, these experience stores. Sure. Every store I went to in Kazakhstan was an experience like you wouldn't have ever believed. They were focused on their controllables. How can I make somebody feel welcome and present? So to go back and tie that in, they know what they want. And they want everyone to have that Ritz-Carlton experience. We've been talking about this forever in our industry in North America. Sure. And the ones that are delivering it are the ones that keep getting called back up on stage to talk about it. And that's available to everybody. When it comes to the marketing and how do I tie in? Well, the marketing is the first promise that what you're about to experience in person will be a fulfillment of that promise. And so when I start targeting and speaking in a way that generates a higher quality opportunity that right out of the gates, we see over our period of time in our test, oh, okay, our engagement rate is actually going up. No more of this tire kicker thing. We can't get a hold of them. They didn't know how they gave us their number. But actual connections, people wanting to have a conversation with you. Here's what we've noticed. And in my firsthand experience, the morale of the BDC, who are the gatekeepers to the rest of what's about to happen, their morale goes up. And when their morale goes up, they start following whatever the process is more consistently. When they follow the process that every operator hopes they're following more consistently, that's why appointment set rate actually goes up, because they're like actually doing the thing now. They're not lazily. And again, I'm not pointing fingers, but let's just call human nature what it is. If I've been calling 200 leads and not one of them is engaging with me and I'm getting ghosted and telling me all the excuses versus the one that's like, oh yeah, actually we were interested in well, over a period of time, when that morale increases, guess what? The handoff is much smoother because we want to give them a better experience. We're seeing this time and time again. And so to your point, though, to make sure we're not looking at it in a silo, well, what's needed? Lots of discipline and consistency. Yeah. There are other factors that play into this. I have to have a BDC team that wants to follow the process, that says, yes, we're gonna give a concerted effort here. We're gonna participate in the experiment. It requires a sales team who actually knows about the inventory, who can take the handoff and do their part. No more of this, oh yeah, let me get your number and I'll call you back and see if we got it. It's 2026. So there are other factors. It requires your third parties that are working with you to understand what everyone is doing, to be aligned, to play well in the sandbox. Now, this might seem like a heavy lift, but guys, if the business is going to be worthwhile, it should be worth the while.
Yeah.
If you're going to keep showing up every day, then show up. Yeah. You know, and so it's worth it. It's really worth it. And so the dealers that we have partners who are doing this extremely well. Some of them you probably know, like the Bob Ruth Fords and, Lang and Fetter Motors and so on and so forth. They're the ones that have really said, hey, we're going to define what we want to be able to achieve here to create an increase in quality. And from there, once you wrap your head around, well, what does quality mean to us? You start realizing that you can close more deals with fewer quantity. And when you get to that place, it's almost like magic. Your dollars are traveling further. You're not having to keep forking out to spend more to get more. You're not trying to fill the inconsistencies and the discrepancies and the gap. You're able to say, boy, we are capturing more people who want to work with us, who are genuinely interested, and maybe not losing them because we've been dealing with the riffraff so much. Yeah. There's a lot to it. I've probably oversimplified to a degree, but all of that to suggest it's possible. And there are more than enough case studies showing how it's possible. And I think this is why I get excited, for events like Amplify, where, to your point, real people doing real things, sharing all of it, and being able to, to your point, some pushback. By the way, it's a little more than cars terminology there, the pushback, which I appreciate, because it requires, I think, if we're going to make any tangible efforts forward in our industry, we have to be willing to come to the table and examine a subject from all sides, from all vantage points and all lived experiences.
Yeah, and I do want to add just one layer to what you just talked about there, because I think it's one that it's probably obvious, but I want to say it, and that's leadership, right? So when you think about the people who are in your store and the people who are leading those departments, you mentioned the BDC, you mentioned the sales team, and whether you have a marketing department or whether you use a third-party marketing agency, however you operate in your store, being able to communicate effectively and to coach those people, right? Because you have to, first of all, have, to your point, the vision of, hey, this is what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to get quality over quantity. You're going to see a little bit of a drop, but I'm telling you, if we execute on X, Y, and Z, we are going to close more deals. Well, there I go, getting back to more. We can define that however we want to, but you have to have that carrot if you're going to get people to go execute the way you want them to. And the leaders in the store are the ones who are going to ultimately make that happen. You can't change a culture and can't change behavior without somebody driving that change. I truly believe that. And so I think the leaders in the store of each of these departments are so important when you're trying to have a shift like this.
And, you caught yourself saying more, but the truth of it is you actually just put more in what I believe is the appropriate place.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's an example. A small Chevy store who for years said, we need 1,500 leads a month. And I said, no, you don't. I said, what's the population of the town you're in? Well, suburb, to the south of Richmond, Virginia, probably 100,000 people. I'm like, think about what you're saying. 1,500 people a month. How many if your team followed the process religiously, how many true touch points could you have with that individual? How many leads could they actually handle? Well, I'm connected to some of the, and I know you are, some of the best BDC operators in the world, some of which have made their own companies to help dealers with BDC. Every 6 months, I call one of them. I'll say, hey, Anthony, hey, Elisa, whoever it is. For a rep following the process religiously, how many leads could you handle yourself? The answer has not changed in 5 years. 120 to 150. Well, wait a minute. So you're telling me you're at the top of your game. You're the Ronaldo of, you're the Messi, whoever, insert the Michael Jordan of lead handling with more than enough proof behind you. And you're saying 150. This dealer's got 2 people handling leads, and you're saying you need 1,500. Think of the number of people in your backyard you are going to burn month over month over month, because guaranteed you're not going back. You're not working 45-day plus leads. So again, you don't need 1,500 leads. Let's fast forward. He wraps his head around quality over quantity, starts shifting processes, moves people around. To your point about leadership, he's now leading with the vision of what he wants to achieve. This month, I talked to him 3 days ago. This month, he is pacing for his biggest sales month in the history of his company, almost 50 years.
That's awesome.
So more was placed appropriately where more should have been. We're all, I believe, misappropriately placing it at the beginning of the conversation. It actually will materialize at the end of the conversation with more vehicles sold, more vehicles serviced, so on and so forth, but everything leading up to it with a lower volume and a higher quality.
No, I love that. Michael, that's a great place for us to land this plane. I could talk to you for days probably if we had enough coffee to get by, but I'll get to see you here in a couple of weeks. I'm really excited about it. Before we wrap though, I mean, anything we didn't touch on today that we should, anything I should have asked you about that I didn't?
No, you do such a great job at this. Thank you for keeping me organized. There was a brief moment there. They were like, oh, pull the ripcord. He's going, but you do such a great job. No, I'm looking forward to seeing you and everyone that will be attending this event. It's going to be a fantastic time.
Yep. Thanks so much. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Well, I cannot wait to get to sit down and talk with Michael live here very soon at Amplify. But what a great conversation. I hope you got a lot out of that. We definitely bounce all over the place, but those are my favorite kinds of conversations. So if you weren't able to track it all, go back and re-listen with a pen and paper. There's a lot of great takeaways. Before we hop off, don't forget you can watch or listen to all episodes of Connected on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts. And make sure to hit subscribe so you're notified every other week when new episodes are released. Thanks so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.